Hey, this is Dr. L here, and this is going to be a hopefully short video lesson on the topic of pediatric poisonings, or when kids encounter something toxic. And we're going to focus on kids at home, and we're really going to focus largely on accidental poisonings, but we'll talk briefly about intentional poisonings. And I apologize for noise in the background here. I'm doing this from home and my dog is running circles. This is the time that I have, so let's get started. So we're going to talk about what we mean by pediatric poisoning. We're going to identify some of the major poisons in home environments that are causing acute pediatric poisoning. So for example, we're not going to focus on lead poisoning, which can be acute but will tend to be more chronic. So it's important, but it's not the focus today. So we're going to focus on the kinds of poisons that trigger calls to the poison control centers. There are about 50 of those that are in the U.S., and that's what we're focusing on. We're going to look at the data in the United States with regards to acute pediatric poisoning. I'm going to go ahead and warn you that that data is found all over the place. This is not a topic that you can sit down and find one good place that really sums all of this up. It's really a hodgepodge of information. I was a little shocked when I pulled information together for this lesson by just how hard it was to find good, accurate information, and the diversity of places looking at this, and the lack of sort of centralized, common, focused information. And I was a little shocked by that. So I'm going to go ahead and point that out, that there's a real problem in lack of sort of systematic examination of this issue, and you would think that people in the lay population would be able to easily find that information, but it's really not that easy to find. It's kind of out there all over the place. So I did my best to find a couple of good sources, and that's what we're going to use as the focus for our lesson today, but I will identify that as a limiter here. And then we're going to talk very briefly about what you can do to prevent or reduce pediatric poisoning. So what we mean by poisoning, we're going to talk about accidental poisonings, and this is the definition from the Journal of the American Medical Association, JAMA. Accidental poisoning is the unintentional consumption of or exposure to harmful amounts of medication, chemicals, plants, food, and other substances. Okay, and pediatric means children. So we're going to focus mostly on children younger than 5 years old, but this would be, the data sort of goes up to 19, so it would also include teens or adolescents. Common causes of accidental poisoning are pain medications, which are also referred to as analgesics, antihistamines, so things like Benadryl, and antidepressants. These are common medications found in many homes, and children sometimes get access to them, and then they are poisoned. Household cleaning products are also common agents of poisoning to very young children. A lot of them are colored, and they look like candy or sweet solutions that they could otherwise drink, okay? And so they consume them. Cosmetics and personal care items are items that poison children. Objects such as batteries or some of the materials that are found in toys can poison children. Supplements and herbal products, so vitamins, can be so dangerous to children. In particular, vitamins high in iron can poison children. And a variety of recreational substances, so kids getting into gummies that contain marijuana or alcohol can poison children. These are real problems for children in their homes, places where they should be safe. So how common is this? Again, it's a complex picture of information. So this source, which is the U.S. Poison Control Center, provides data up to 2020 at the current time. And so here's sort of like a sense of the volume. In 2020, at the 55 U.S. Poison Control Centers, which provide telephone guidance when people call in, they received over 2.1 million calls. So that's 2.1 million human poison exposures. So that's about 6.4 poison exposures per 1,000 people in the U.S. population back in 2020. 37.9 poison exposures in children younger than 6 years per 1,000 children. So if you do the population of children documented in the U.S., 37.9 per 1,000 in 1 year. That's a lot of calls. And then 1 poison exposure is reported to the U.S. Poison Control Centers every 15 centers. These are pretty busy phone lines. Okay. So what are the age groups that are poisoned? And this is, again, this data is from the Poison Control Center data set. So adults, which are considered 20 and up, are about 43% of the poisoning incidents. And this is 2020 data again. It's unknown, about 1%, so they don't get that information off the call. These are all calls, right? And these are all just like, this is what is reported, right? There's probably more that's not reported out there. This is kind of the tip of the iceberg. Kids less than 6 years old were 42% of those calls. I don't know why I had that on there twice. Kids in the range of 6 to 12 years old represent also 6%. And teens 13 to 19 years old represent 8%. Okay, so like if you look at this, like more than half of the poisonings in 2020 are children. Human beings that are less than 19 years of age, and way too many of them are under 6. In the kids under 6, this is what they're most frequently poisoned by, according to the Poison Control Center. So most of those calls are triggered by kids that have consumed cosmetics or personal care products. Okay, that could include eye drops, and there's going to be another lesson on that, so hold that thought. Cleaning substances, so like dishwasher detergent, particularly the stuff in pods. It looks like candy. It's not candy, and it makes kids extremely sick. It's very alkaline in nature, so it makes children very, very sick, right? Also, a lot of the calls. Analgesics, which are painkillers. So this could range from Tylenol and Advil all the way up to opioids. And that's a lot of the calls, and that has gone up since 2020. So more and more kids are getting poisoned specifically by opioids. So this is older data here, okay? Foreign bodies, toys, miscellaneous, dietary supplements, particularly ones that contain iron. Vitamins is broken out separately, so that would actually be where your iron supplements are down here in the 4.9%. The dietary supplements that are herbals or homeopathic might be like echinacea pills or something like that. Topical preparations, so like antibiotic creams or antihistamine creams, or things that people have for eczema at home. Antihistamines, pesticides, which are extremely dangerous. This is one of the things that can be lethal to children. And plants. Kids can get into plants and eat poisonous plants. Okay. And kids under 6, like that's what the calls are for. So it's what's poisoning them. This is like what is deadly to them. So what will actually kill them. And this list is a little bit different. So at the top of this list are fumes, gases, or vapors. A big one there would be carbon monoxide poisoning. Way too many people die from carbon monoxide poisoning each year in the United States and in other countries, and many of them are children. The painkillers are killing them, so the opioids will kill them. Unknown drugs, right? So some of the poisoning, it's not known what it is. Cardiovascular drugs, so getting into grandma's heart medication can kill children. Antihistamines can kill children. Batteries, stimulants, and street drugs. Okay, so methamphetamine would fall in there. Alcohols, different types of alcohols. Some would be for recreational purposes, some cleaners, right? Antidepressant chemicals or drugs, and then just sort of assorted other chemicals. These are the things that kill them with carbon monoxide poisoning, you know, and gases, solvents, gasoline, for example. Terrible for children, terrible for everybody, particularly bad for kids. And those painkillers, those are the most dangerous categories. Okay, so how significant is death due to poisonings in children numerically? In other words, like a lot of things kill kids in the United States. Where do poisonings fall into this, right? And this is data up to 2020. And I sort of shifted my frame there. Let me shift it back again. And it's a little hard to read this graph. The source of it is a paper published in the New England Journal of Medicine. The link is there. And so this blue line is deaths due to motor vehicle collisions, and you'll notice it trended way down since 1999. That's innovations in things like car seats and laws for seat belts, and improvements to car safety overall is reducing motor vehicle deaths, although it's still a leading cause of death in this country. The number one cause of death in 2020 and still today is firearm-related injuries, so more kids die from gunshot wounds than from any other cause of death in the United States. And then down here we have, this is really hard to see, but this little purple line, which started down here in 0.5, and it's kind of bumping along, holding steady up into the 2020s, and then it shoots up here. It shoots up so that it is the third leading cause of death in 2020, and that is about similar today in 2025. That's drug overdose and poisoning. So in other words, in 2020 and still today, drug overdose and poisonings are the third leading cause of death in children. And this line is trending up, which is, any of these lines trending up is a concern because it means a situation that we do not have control over. Very important to pay attention to that. This is an important cause of death in kids. So why are they so vulnerable to poisoning? They have smaller sizes and therefore less body mass, which means when they take a chemical in per gram or per kilogram body weight, they have a higher actual dose, right? So a little will go a long way in a small body, right? So an adult dosing for Tylenol in a tiny body is a very, very high concentration of Tylenol, very, very deadly. They have faster metabolic rates, so poisons can act more quickly in children than adults. Their detoxification systems, like their livers, are not yet fully functional. They're immature, so they can't detox as well as adults can. They are vulnerable developmentally, which you learned about in the thalidomide story, that there are critical stages for the development of organs in all body systems. And so this is particularly true like in children under the age of 4, where the protective system called the blood-brain barrier is not yet fully functional. So a lot of poisons can enter the nervous system in young children in ways that they cannot in older children or certainly in adults. Behaviorally, they are vulnerable. They have very poor impulse control, especially toddlers. They also like to explore and have a tendency to put things in their mouth, and they have no self-control. So this makes them particularly vulnerable to poisons in their environment. They are also dependent on their caregivers, so they're very affected when caregivers are absent, physically, mentally, emotionally, or because they lack the knowledge that they need to protect their children. I'm not trying to cast blame here, but I'm just trying to make the point that they are totally dependent on their caregivers. One important thing to note is that 9 out of 10 of all pediatric poisonings occur at home, in the environment where kids should be safe. Okay, I'm going to split this video into 2 parts so it's not too long for uploading, and so I'm going to close here and I'm going to pick up in the next video.